But first, I bet you didn't know that astronomy started in our own Emerald Isle. We're going to meet David Moore from Astronomy Ireland, hear about that and lots more. David, is it true that astronomy started in Ireland?
Yes, the oldest astronomically aligned building anywhere in the world, predating the pyramids and Stonehenge, is Newgrange in County Meath. Our ancient Irish ancestors over 5,000 years ago were watching the movements of the skies very closely because their lives literally depended on it.
Why?
Well, back then, nowadays, we're worried about how old is the universe. We're down to about 13.8 billion years, and they're arguing is it 0.8, 0.9 or 0.7. Back then, they were worried about how long is the year, because if you didn't plant your crops at the right time of year, you might not have enough food to survive the winter. So it was literally a matter of life and death, and there's evidence that they knew that the year was not just 365 days long, but 365 and a quarter. And that quarter was important, because every century it would add up to 25 days, about a month, and you don't want to be planting your crops a month later, a month early. So the length of the year was very important to them, and they moved 200,000 tons of material with no equipment to build this monument lined up with the midwinter sunrise point. That's how important it was to them.
And you're here in the Hawkswell Theatre tonight, and what can people expect from your talk this evening?
Fun. That's the main thing. It's all about astronomy, it's all about the universe, but there's lots of great fun aspects to it. And we're an amateur group, and amateur means amour, the love of the subject. So we're passionate about astronomy. So rather than going into fine details of the science behind one particular area, we'll be covering everything from the Big Bang to black holes to Newgrange to Irish history, the fact the first man on the moon was really Irish. All these things they don't teach you in school that we can have great fun learning.
And Neil Armstrong was really Irish?
That's what he told me himself. I interviewed him in 2003 when he was in Dublin, and we asked him lots of interesting questions about going to the moon, but we also asked him had he got any Irish ancestry, and he told us in fact they had researched the family tree, and his family came from County Fermanagh. And then he laughed when he told me in fact apparently his family back then were known for stealing cattle. So the first man on the moon is more Irish than Barack Obama and was descended from ancient Irish cattle rustlers. That's something they don't teach you in school. And I think it's those fun little facts, especially Irish facts, that we can tell an Irish audience how proud they can be of the history of Irish astronomy. And by the way, it looks very bright for the future with recent developments.
Yes, what is the future?
Well, for the research side of astronomy, the keeping up that tradition, it's the fact that we're now exploring talks with the European Southern Observatory, who are going to build the biggest telescope that's ever been seen. It's a consortium of European countries, and they're going to site it in the Southern Hemisphere, and Ireland will probably have a stake in that. It's worth about €1 billion. And as well as that, we're hopefully going to join the Large Hadron Collider at CERN, more work for scientists trying to figure out the building blocks of the universe, and a telescope, a radio telescope, has been funded to be in Burcastle, where there's not much radio interference, and it'll link in with other telescopes around the world, and they can synthesize a huge telescope, thousands of kilometers wide, which is the cutting edge of radio astronomy. So we're going to be involved in everything from the tiny to the very large, if the scientists in Ireland have their way, and we've been trying to help any way we can by promoting an interest in the subject and how great a heritage we have. And Astronomy Ireland itself is already, relative to population, the most popular astronomy club in the universe, and growing all the time.
What's the most exciting thing that you've come across with your amour or love of astronomy since you started getting involved?
There have been so many things. I mean, one thing we've started to do in the last few years is run tours, and we're hoping to have a big tour next year to see the total eclipse of the sun in the USA. Now, we've had them before. In 2006 we went to Turkey and we saw a total eclipse of the sun, said to be the most spectacular thing in nature, and when I saw it, I have to agree. The sky, it was the last last few seconds before the moon totally covered the sun and day turns to night. It was like you're in a room, only you're in a huge landscape on the side of a mountain, and somebody turns down the dimmer switch. I never expected that. The diamond ring appears, the sun gets eclipsed. Words don't describe it adequately. You've got to be there. There won't be one on Irish soil till 2090 is the only problem, so you have to travel if you want to see one of those. But then a couple of years ago we ran a trip to the Northern Lights in Norway. And the group that we took with us got to see a huge display of the aurora. And I've seen aurora from Ireland, and they're quite nice, but when you're in the Arctic Circle underneath them, and they're dancing around at high speed, and they're so bright, you're looking behind you to see is there a shadow being cast. That's how bright they are. It actually, I thought, was better than a total eclipse of the sun.
And do they look like stars or actually just lights?
Well, the Northern Lights they're like rays. You've got these showers of radiation coming into the Earth's atmosphere and hitting the upper atmosphere, making it glow. So it's well above all the aircraft, so there's no danger to anybody, not even the people, the astronauts in space. But you have these sort of curtains of light, or these sheets of material that are coming down, and they're sort of random because it's gusts and buffeting of radiation that's coming in to the Earth, and it just puts on this dazzling display.
And that was definitely a highlight for you.
Oh yeah, that was huge. I'll never forget that as long as I live. And we ran 4 trips, and I was lucky enough to lead the 4 trips, and we're planning more now. We've been to Norway, we're going to try Iceland next. We have the trip to the USA. There are other trips we're trying to organise to go and see the southern hemisphere. Half the universe is not visible from Ireland. I've been lucky enough to be in Australia and see it myself, and there's some real showcases down there that I think want to be on people's bucket list to see. The Large Magellanic Cloud, satellite galaxies to our own, the centre of the galaxy that you can't really see from Ireland. It's low down in the murk, but it's overhead down there.
You were talking to school children today, and you were telling me that you think that somebody who's in school has a very exciting future.
Absolutely, yeah. We talk to schools all around the country. We've been doing it for the 25 years we've been in existence. It's great to hear all the questions the kids have, and we like to get them involved and to make them realise this is not just a talk about astronomy. This is something that you can have a career in. Neil Armstrong was a young boy in a small farming town in America, nothing special. He kept up his interest, and ultimately they chose him to be the first man on the moon. And there's no reason why an Irish person can't be the first person on Mars, because it's going to be an international trip, and it's going to happen probably in the 2030s or 40s. So if you're at school today, you're going to hopefully graduate, go to college, maybe get a bit of experience in some other areas of industry, apply for the astronaut job, get it, and you get picked as the first astronaut to set foot on Mars. And you'll go down in history just like Neil Armstrong did, just like Columbus did.
Well, I would be killed if I didn't ask you this next and final question. What is happening about the 9th planet?
Yeah, this is a brand new story, although there have been some inklings that some researchers had noticed that there was something peculiar about objects in the outer part of the solar system. They were moving in ways you wouldn't expect. They weren't randomly moving. And so some researchers have now done an analysis of what could be making this happen, and they've come up with a planet about 10 times the mass of the Earth, and they're actually very popular sized planets going around other stars. So we were wondering why we didn't have enough of those. We only got 2, now we've hopefully got 3, and it predicted a few things that their theory did, that they went and looked for, and sure enough the outer asteroids out beyond Pluto are moving exactly the way that this planet would have made them move. So that's indirect circumstantial evidence, but very strong evidence, like about 1,000 to 1 chance that this would actually be random. So we haven't found the planet, but there's huge evidence that there must be one out there. But it's 30 times further from the sun than the outermost planets are, and takes 20,000 years to go around. So all the other planets are clustered up close to the sun by comparison, and this one's way out in the depths. So it's a really weird body, if it does exist. It hasn't got a name, so people are just calling it Planet 9 for the time being.
And how will they find out? Does it actually exist? What will happen?
Well, there are telescopes already planned to look for it. There are survey telescopes that are going to be monitoring the whole sky anyway, looking for all manner of objects, and they may just pick it up accidentally, and they'll certainly be looking in those pictures that are coming back for an object like this, and it'll have certain characteristics as to how it moves that will help them try to find it. So it's going to take, I think, years before anyone is happy that we've looked hard enough and we haven't found it, and the theory falls by the wayside. But more likely, I think, the front page of our magazine's already being held for this story, and I think it's going to be held for when it's discovered. Planet 9 found, and then it'll be up to people to name it. And Pluto was actually named by a 12-year-old girl in England who suggested the name, so it'd probably be an international search for names. So maybe Irish kids, school kids, should get ready and start thinking up names now.
Right, okay. Well, when they find Planet 9 and hopefully an Irish school kid names it, will you come back and talk to us on Sligo County Matters?
Oh, I'll come back for any excuse at all. I love talking about astronomy. Sligo's been very good to us. We had one of our young members from Sligo who went on to do a PhD with Stephen Hawking, a chap now called Dr. Oisin Machanauna. And if he's watching in, we congratulate him on getting his PhD, not just any old PhD, but a PhD with Stephen Hawking himself. He even apparently taught Stephen a couple of fuckle.